Welcome to the second Android tutorial where we are creating Facebook and Android Studio. In this video, we're going to implement the REST API and other dependencies while finishing our login activity and creating our database. So let's get started. Now the first thing that we need to do is go to Google Chrome and download XAMPP. And we can click the first link and you will just hit download on the latest version if you have Windows. And same thing if you have OS X or Linux. So we're going to go ahead and download that. I already have it downloaded, but just go through the entire process, hit next, next, next. You don't have to uncheck any boxes except for the add at the end, and I think it's for like Bitnami or something like that. So once that's downloaded, when you open it up, you should come to this screen here, and you're going to go ahead and hit start and start on the MySQL in Apache, and we can go ahead and move on to the next step. Now our next step will be to create the database. So if we go to localhost/phpMyAdmin, you will come to this screen here once you have XAMPP good and started. So we will go to new and create a new database. We will call this networking app. In my case, you can call it whatever your project is named. It does not matter. And we'll go ahead and hit create. So our first table is going to be called user and is going to have 5 columns. And we can hit go. So we're going to have a user ID. We will have a name, email, profile URL, cover URL, and we actually have to add one more column. This is going to be user token. Okay, so this will be a varchar, length 255. We have another varchar, length 50, varchar 50. We have text, text, and text. And what we're going to do with this user ID, this first variable or column, we're going to go to index and say primary and say go. Save that. And we're all set to go with this table. Okay, so our next step is to go and download the Android Retrofit client. So we can just type in Android Retrofit client, click on the first one, Square Open Source, and we're looking over here to the right. We're going to hit download, and this is the implementation that we need to put into our Gradle file. So just copy that and go back and paste it here. I already have done that. As you can see, we are also using the converter JSON, which is right here. And we also see that I have added another logging interceptor, which is basically just going to help us. It's really handy when we're seeing what kind of data that we're getting from the database. So make sure you have these 3 implementations. And the next thing is to go over to our our package, and we're going to say new package, and we're going to call this REST because we are going to be using REST calls. So now inside of here, we're going to create a new Java class called API client. Oh, and don't forget to sync that too, by the way, that Gradle file. So that's going to sync up there. Okay, so inside of our API client, we are going to say extends activity and hit Alt Enter. Now for our first variable, we are going to say public. Actually, let me give a little bit of room here. We are going to say public static final string base URL, and this is going to say HTTPS, or just actually HTTP colon, and we're going to say 10.0.2.2, and this is going to say / networking app. Oops. Networking app. Okay, so now what we have to do is go into our XAMPP file, which is right here for me. I put it in my downloads. We're going to go to XAMPP and then into htdocs, and we're going to create a new folder, new folder, and we'll call this networking app. Okay, we're all set there. Now we have to add a little bit more code here, And I'm just going to go ahead and fast forward while I make this and explain in a second. So what's happening here is basically we are setting our HTTP logging interceptor, or attaching it, sorry, to our HTTP client. We're checking if the retrofit is equal to null, and if it is, then we're going to go ahead and build the retrofit. So that's basically what's happening here. And now for our next step, which is to download Composer. So we are just going to type in download Composer. We have to get a few dependencies. We can click right here. And then we're going to want to click right here on composer setup.exe. So this is going to start a download of a file, and you just want to start the install, click next, 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 go all the way through, watch out for the ads, click off that. And so once you have that installed, in order to make sure that you have it installed right, you can go to Windows PowerShell or the command line, and all you have to do is type composer, and this should come up. If you do not have this, please leave a comment down below, and I will be sure to help you figure that out. So our next order of business is to download the Slim framework. So we go up here and type Slim framework, visit this page, user guide, installation, and this is the line we need to run here. However, we're not going to use the version 4 4.* because this project works best with version 3.0. So what we need to do is go over to back to our PowerShell. You're going to navigate to wherever you downloaded XAMPP, or wherever we just created this file here, which is inside of htdocs. If I can find it. Oh, here we go. Okay, so wherever this networking app is, we're going to navigate to this folder inside of the PowerShell. And the command that we are going to run in here is going to say composer require slim 3.12.3. And then we're just going to hit enter on that. And that might take a second to install. So in the meantime, we can check if our PHP is going to work properly. So what we're going to do is go over here and say edit system environments, or system environment variables. We are going to visit the environment variables right here, and we're going to go ahead and look right for this path variable right here, and we're going to hit edit. Now make sure that this folder is here. If it's not, that probably means something went wrong. So again, feel free to leave a comment down below and I will be sure to help you out. We can exit this, and it looks like our Slim framework has been downloaded. So the next step is to go to our XAMPP htdocs and look at this networking app. Now we're going to go ahead and open this in a text editor. I'm using Atom currently. So I'm going to open up Atom, and you can use Sublime or whatever else, but I'm going to drag this folder into here. Now we can go ahead and exit out of these. So what we're going to do in Atom in our new folder is, well, create a few more folders. So what we want to do is say new folder. We're going to create one called public. One is going to be called Bootstrap. And one is going to be called app. Okay, and now inside of these folders, we're going to create some files. So inside of the Bootstrap folder, we're going to create a file called app.php. Inside of the public folder, we're going to create, inside the public folder, we're going to create a file called .htaccess. Don't forget that dot. Next, we are going to create a file called index.php inside of our public folder. Okay, So what's going to go inside of our htaccess folder, we can find over at our Slim Framework website. We're going to go to web servers and copy this code right here under Apache configuration. So we can copy that, go back to Atom, paste that right in there, and hit Control S to save it, and we're all set with that. So now inside of our app.php, we're going to write a few lines of code. Okay, so what we did here is basically, well, it'll be easier to explain once we finish creating the rest of the files, but we're just including our user.php, which we'll actually create inside of our app folder right now. So let's create this file. We'll say user.php. Okay, so we're just going to require it right here. We are making a new Slim app, and we're also requiring vendor auto load. So we can just go ahead and hit Control S. So now into our, we can exit out of htaccess. We don't need it anymore. Inside of our index.php file, we're going to create some more code. I'll fast forward again. Okay, so what we did here is basically just declare or tell our app rather to run, and we're going to require the bootstrap slash app.php, which we have just created right here. So we can go ahead and hit save on that. And inside of our user.php file, we have a little bit more code to write. Okay, so this is basically all this code that I just wrote is found online in the Slim Framework website, but I just figured that I would rather just speed up the process by typing it. So inside of here, it's basically just a function that's going to echo hello world, and we can see that in action if we go to over here and we just type localhost slash networking app slash public app and test. So it appears that we have an error here, so let's go try to figure this out in Atom. And I can already tell that there is something about this page that is not right. I'll give you a second to figure out. Okay, time's up. So what is happening here is we have an extra little brace here, so we'll Control S, we'll make sure it's not, it is in our other files, so we'll get rid of that, hit Control S, and get rid of this one too, and Control S. So let's go back to our tab, and we will retype what we just had. Networking app slash public slash app slash test, and we see that we have hello world. Now we're going to finish our login system by adding a couple PHP files, adding a few Java classes, and we'll be all set to go. So let's go ahead and get started right away with that. Now before I actually start on anything, I do want to make a quick fix, which is simply to go to our localhost slash phpMyAdmin, go to our user table, and we're actually going to rename it to users. That was a slight error. We're not just having one user, we have users. So in order to rename that, all we have to do is go to our table, go up to, I believe, operations, and we will rename table to users and then hit go right here. However, I already have. Okay, so let's get right on then to the connection of the PHP to the database. So we're going to go and open up Atom, and what we're going to do here is create a new file. Inside of our Bootstrap folder, we're going to create a new file, and we're going to name this dbconnect.php. Okay. Now in here, I'm going to go ahead and type out what we need and then explain it in a second. Okay, so what we have here is the connection to our database. Now, this variable here holds our host, which is going to be localhost, and our DB name, which in my case is networking app. It's going to be whatever um, name you use right here. Okay, so next in our try statement, we are just passing in our variables, and if there is an error, then we are saying connection error. Okay, so now that we're done with this, we can go ahead and close that out. We're all done there. And we need to open up user.php. So what we're going to do in here is completely change this around. So first of all, this is going to get changed to post. And instead of app test, we are going to say /app/login. And that can stay the same. And now we're going to do a lot of code inside of here. So I'm going ahead and fast forward it yet again, and I will explain after. Okay, so what we have so far here is basically, so I changed this to post right here, and because I did that, when we are requesting our user ID, we have to say get parsed body. Now, if we were using get, I believe it would look like, it would say the request arrow, and it would say get query param, and inside of here it would say UID, just like that. So that would be if we were using get, but we are using post, so it will say get parse body. Now we're just getting all of our variables here, which correspond to our structure. All these should be the same. And right here we have the check statement. We are selecting user ID from users, where user ID is equal to user ID. And we're binding the param, executing that, and getting the row count. Okay, so we have a little bit more code left right here, and I'm just going to go ahead and speed this up. Okay, so now we are done with our user file for now. Basically what went on here is that if this returns, if count is equal to 1 when we are getting the row count here, then we are updating where user token is equal to the user token and the user ID is equal to the user ID. So essentially we're just updating. And else, if we basically don't have a user signed up, then we are going to insert the new user with all his values here. And what's really cool is we are going to be able to see this right now without even running the app. So to do that, we're going to go to Google Chrome and we have to download the extension Postman. So all you have to do is go here and type in Postman Chrome extension. And it looks like this one is okay. And all we have to do is you will say add to Chrome. I'm going to launch the app. So once we launch this app, we're going to come right here and we can just go ahead and skip this. So now what we're going to say is we will change this to, it looks like I already have some sessions open. I'll just go ahead and restart it, or I'll just cancel my session so we're on the same page. Don't save, don't save. Okay, so basically what we want to do here is start out by changing this to post, and we're going to type in the URL localhost slash networking app slash public slash app slash login. And of course, if you named your app something different, this is going to be something different right here. And so now what we're going to do is click this body little key here, and we're going to start entering in our parameters. So this is going to be user ID, Okay, so now that we're done with this, I changed a couple things here because I already have an entry in the database that says abc and ab@gmail.com. So we just changed this to well, actually we didn't change this, so I might as well put UID1 DEF. So make sure all this is the same. All these names are going to be the same ones that are right here. So make sure those match up. And once we're done with that, all we have to do is hit send. And we should see a 1 return right there. And that 1 is coming from this echo true. That means we have a statement. And so now let's go look at our database. We'll browse, and this is updating, and boom, we see our data is inserted right there. So that's pretty cool. Now our next objective is to access this data using retrofit callbacks inside of our Android app. So let's do that right now. What we're going to do here in our API client.java class is simply append on to here /public/app. And you will see how this works in just a moment. So we are going to go to our REST package here. We can open this up and we're going to right click and say new package. And we are going to call this services. Okay, and then inside of services, we are going to say new Java class. And this is actually not going to be a class, it's going to be an interface. And this will be called user interface. Okay, this looks good. Now we have to add a little bit of code in here. And what we're going to do here is pretty much write the standard retrofit callback, and you'll see in a second. Okay, so we're going to say call integer, or this will be type integer, and then we're just going to call this sign in. And we're going to have to hit alt enter here. Okay, so basically why we're using integer here is because we'll either be getting a 0 or a 1, and so we need to specify the type as integer. And we also need to specify the annotation, which will be a post request that will say login. Post, and then this will say login. And you just hit alt enter there. And inside of our sign in method, we are going to annotate the login activity as a body for retrofit. And this user info that we are passing in here, let's see. And this user info that we're passing in here, we will create in just a second. So let's go do that. Inside of our login activity, we have to go right underneath everything, but not outside of our class. And we're going to type a little bit of code here. Okay, now that we're done creating this little class here, user info, we are done initializing our variables with our constructor. We're good to move on. We actually have quite a bit of code to add to Firebase auth method here, but before we do that, let's add this really quick underneath request code, and we're going to say progress dialog.show, and this is basically just going to show the loading of our sign-in. Okay, so now on to Firebase auth. Basically what we're about to do is we're going to get the user token. Well, I'll just show you real quick. Underneath current user, or get current user right here, we're going to say Firebase instance ID dot get instance ID. We'll hit alt enter. Add on success listener. And inside of here, we're going to say login activity. And we're going to say new on success listener. I will just actually go like this, enter this down so you guys can see. So basically what's happening here, you will see how easily we will get the rest of our variables, but the user token is actually a stickler to get, and this is how we're getting the user token. So basically on success, we are going to say, okay, now that we're done with this little bit of code, basically what we did here is we get our user token, we get all of our other variables. I misspelled this right here. This should be UID. UID, we're getting the UID, get the name, email, profile URL, and cover URL. And underneath here, we initialize our user interface, and we will continue on with the coding. Okay, so before I continue, we're going to import this with Retrofit 2. Make sure, because there's two options. And now basically what we're doing here is we're just calling Retrofit asynchronously. And we know it's asynchronous because we're using enqueue. Okay, on with the coding. Alright, so now we are done with this on response. Basically, what I did here was inside of the callback when we're in queuing, I just generated an override method for the on response method as well as the on failure method. And basically in here, if we get a good response, then we're going to be taken to the main activity. If we don't get a good response, then we are going to see a text that says login failed. So now we just need a little bit more code. Feel free to pause it right now and you can see what all we typed here. Okay, so we will continue with the on failure, not too much more code, so don't worry. Okay, now that we're done with this code, all we have left to do is run the app and see what we get. With any luck, we should have success. But make sure that you've uninstalled the app before we run it, because if you're already logged in, it will keep you, or it won't show the login page because you're already logged in. So let's give this a run. Okay, here's the title screen. We hit sign in, click our Gmail account, signing in, and error. So what do we have going on here? Let's check the run. Basically, oh, what we have here is we didn't simply put a slash after app. Okay, so let's close this down. I don't think we will need to uninstall, but we will just run again. Make sure you put that slash after app. Yeah, see, we're already logged in, so we need to uninstall this really quick. And we'll give this a run. Okay, back to the login screen. Click our account, signing us in, and login is successful. So we have successfully completed the entire login system of our Facebook app, and now we will move on to brighter pastures when we start designing the interface and how it's going to look. So be sure to like and subscribe so you get the notification when the video comes out, and we will see you in that video. Thank you for watching.